report is raising concerns about how quickly consumers are alerted to some food recalls or outbreaks. In this Watching Your Wallet, consumer investigator Carice Jackman explains what the group found, how the FDA is responding, and what you can do to stay safe.
Foodborne illnesses are a major public health issue. The Government Accountability Office says it costs Americans an estimated $75 billion a year in medical care, lost productivity, and premature deaths. That's why Teresa Murray, consumer watchdog with U.S. PIRG, says the public needs timely, clear information when food safety problems emerge.
There's a lot of detective work that takes place, and so it's understandable that it does take time. We still think that it takes way too long. Like, it shouldn't take years.
PIRG's new Food for Thought 2026 report looks at 28 foodborne illness outbreaks announced in 2025. The group says these outbreaks were linked to just over 1,000 reported illnesses. It says salmonella was the most common cause, linked to 15 outbreaks and 636 illnesses. PIRG says one of its biggest concerns is that many of those outbreak investigations did not lead to a publicly announced recall. The group also raises concerns that some FDA-regulated recalls are not posted on the FDA's recall page, which the FDA itself notes does not include all recalls.
Well, come on. If you're not posting the recall announcements on the FDA's recall website that people rely on to find out if they've got something in their freezer or in their pantry, how are they supposed to find out? Like, really? How are they supposed to find out?
We reached out to the FDA about PIRG's report. The agency says it uses several methods to reach consumers, including press releases, alerts, and public notices. Murray says concerned consumers can take steps on their own, including shopping at stores that alert consumers when products they bought have been recalled.
A lot of the grocery stores are doing that now. So they will send out an automated text message or email or even a phone call.
With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Carice Jackman.